You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And you have tuned into The Mountain Gardener. This is your host, Ken Lane. We're here every week talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona. And this is a blessing. I don't know. It's been hot, and now all of a sudden it's cloudy. So this week, there's a system coming in. Actually, there's a hurricane coming in from the Gulf, from the Baja, Sea Cortez, that area. And it's funneling right on us. So we'll get that back end spin. So here's what I have been doing. This is your gardens will respond to this tremendously if you prepare at all. And so this week in my own personal gardens and here at the garden center, I have been watering my plants extra. And it seems counterintuitive and why I would do that. But here's how in a dry climate you can take advantage of a system, a weather front coming in that will help your plants. The ground is bone dry. I mean, it's ridiculous how dry things are. I'll tell you how to get stressed out plants healthier, not just from a weather system, but how to just make them healthier. But first of all, here's what I've been doing with my irrigation. I've made sure that I cycled all of my systems, all my valves, and I'll make sure that my plants are going into this rain fully hydrated. Well, Ken, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just wait for the rain to come do it for you? Well, the rain frequently is very just unpredictable. You just don't know how much rain we're going to get, no matter what the weatherman says. But if I make sure I hydrate my plants with my irrigation, so I've run them there on my normal cycle, but then I manually ran all the flowers, trees, and shrubs in my yard, in my landscapes. So now, when the system comes, it just supplements or adds to my plants. And so the soil around the plants are hydrated, but then I get the system, the weather front, to push that moisture even deeper and then also water the surrounding root system of my plants. And so you will see the plants respond if you do that. If you didn't do that, you just said, I'm going to rely on the rain. I don't want to spend the time or energy or think about my plants. They're on their own. They've been surviving this long anyway. Let it rain. Then plants, some of you, your yards look terrible. Your plants look like they're about to die, which means your house looks like only death lives there. Please surround me by more rocks. Let me radiate more heat. And I wonder why my plants are struggling. This is a way to really set the stage for new growth. This is not a monsoonal pattern. This is a one-time wonder in the month of June. This happens every once in a while. The month of July and August and the first part of September is our monsoon pattern. I was looking at that pattern coming up, that moisture coming up out of Mexico. It's still in Texas. It's 2-3 weeks out before it actually gets to us yet. And so this system is take advantage of it while you can, as there won't be rain after it for a while. We can hope that the humidity will rise up enough where we'll start to get some residual rains afterwards or some afternoon clouds. The plants will actually pick up the rain, not just from the droplets, the raindrops, but the humidity, the cloud cover. These plants will take advantage of all of that. They can take in moisture from their foliage. If the sun isn't baking them dry, you can gain some real benefit no matter how much moisture we get. But I predict, this is my thought, what I've seen over the decades, that it will dry out. It'll become sunny and hot again, and the plants will start to dry out again. So again, like I said last week, just keep the plants alive through the month of June, because when the rains come in July, everything is a game changer. Things will start to bloom again. They'll relief. No matter how bad they look this month, you can set the stage. You just keep them alive. You're setting the stage for the monsoonal consistent rains, not just one hurricane coming up the Sea Cortez, but more, 2-3 rains a week. is what we can expect when the monsoons get here. But take advantage. Even if it's raining now, so you tuned in, there's some moisture over you, you're seeing some rain, I would think it's still beneficial. I know this sounds odd for you folks from the Midwest, where you're used to seeing rains and tornadoes and more consistent, or the South, more consistent rains. We aren't. Even if it's raining here in Arizona, I would run the irrigation even in the rainstorm, just because we're trying to load up your soil with more moisture than it's had for a while. And that soil will retain that for a number of days, if not a couple weeks, 10, 14 days at a time, if we get that water deep into the soil. If you just rely on the rain, many times it just loads up, runs off, and it doesn't soak into your soil. So just some things I've been doing. Now, if your plants are stressed, here's what you can do an additive you can do to make your plants more robust, more just healthier. This is really important for your native plants, really important for your established trees that are showing some stress. We are starting to see bark beetles show up on the pine trees. That's because the trees are stressed. They haven't seen moisture since November. You can I suggest watering your natives once a month. Don't overdo it. Big ponderosa pine or pinyon pine or juniper that's been there forever. I suggest keeping it healthy by a once a month watering. Take a soaker hose and just let it run for half a day. Just let it soak in. Or pray for a hurricane coming up the Sea of Cortez and just dumping a lot of rain on us. We'll see how it plays out this week. I hope it's enough. But the number one thing you can do right now for a plant that looks stressed, whether it's a new plant or an old plant, if it's a new plant, really would help because it helps encourage roots. There's a product called Humic, Humic. It's like it's a granular product. You spread it around underneath where the root zone or the drip line is of that plant. And what Humic does, it's humic acid. That's the play on the name. It feeds the soil where your plants are growing. So the plants want to root out. It's not actually helping the plant, not feeding the plant. It's feeding the soil around the plant, so your mycorrhizal fungi, the worms, the beneficials, the mushrooms, the things that help plants grow, it kind of tickles the feet of plants and encourages them to root deeper. If you could put that on right now, take advantage of this moisture that we're seeing and set the stage for the monsoons, it can really help a plant become more robust. So it increases the root mass of those plants. And so those roots have been damaged, or there just wasn't enough root mass to keep it healthy with the irrigation you've got. Well, if you've got burned tips on your maples or perennials or whatever it is, it's good. I just chuck it around the entire landscape. I take a bag, it's a 20-pound bag. I put it in my hand spreader, and I just walk around the yard. And I spread it around so it increases the root mass. That's going to make sure I have a hardier tree, a more substantial root mass under that tree or shrub or flower, whatever. So it's tougher. That if you've got more roots, that plant is healthier. That plant can fend off bark beetles by itself. It doesn't need chemicals and pesticides. This is all organic. Humic is 100% natural. So you can spread it out there, not worry about your dogs and birds and cats running around it. Just let the rain take it in through the rock, underneath, through the soil, through the bark, through the fabric. It'll just melt through and feed that soil so the plant sees an active living soil that it wants to root more further into. It's a game changer. If you've got stressed plants, I highly encourage it. It's very inexpensive. You spread it around, let the rain take it in. That's it. Don't work it in. Don't do anything special with it. Here's the thing with lawns. If you put humic on lawns, you will never have to aerate or dethatch again. Because again, it's feeding the bacteria that eats the thatch. So it will actually compost that for you and take it into the root zone. It'll cause the roots of that grass to root deeper. It's really great product that I don't think most folks know what it does or what it is. And so humic is a real game. Granular, spread around, it's, I don't know, $20, $30 for a 2,000 square foot coverage. It's an amazing product. Be right back. Lisa Waters Lane coming in the studio with your garden questions.
You're listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, also known as the Mountain Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Listen each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to mountain landscapes.
Hi, Lisa here with the plants of the week and our little Janie Gara.
Little Janie is a charmer with flowers that float above this 15-inch plant.
The fluorescent pink flowers will wow the hummingbirds with Janie's charm as well.
Hummingbirds throughout the neighborhood will visit your plants. They're just so popular and only $14.
She thrives in hot, dry gardens and only found at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
Where people who love their native plants to be beautiful and hassle-free, they love to shop.
Hi, Lisa here with the plants of the week and our Royal Burgundy Barbary.
We finally perfected Barbary with burgundy velvet foliage that holds its color through summer, changing to red in fall.
Celebrate summer heat and hardy as can be, and javelina are no problem.
This knee-high shrub grows with little to no care.
A big, bold plant is just $36 and only found at Waters Garden Center.
1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where people who love royal barberries, they love to shop.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And we have Lisa Waters Lane in the studio. She comes and takes your garden questions just to share. You can learn by hearing good questions coming from your neighbors. So that was the intent of this particular segment. So Lisa comes and brings those every week. Welcome to the studio, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're just back from El Paso. You want to share with folks what our family hoorah event happened?
Yeah, so our son graduated from the Inter-Service Physician's Assistant Program. I have to always think
it's
about
a mouthful. They just use acronyms
it's
everywhere.
The Army. They use every acronym. So he graduated from that, which is a huge honor just in and of itself. How long was he in that? 29 months? I forget how many months.
It's just over 2 years.
Yeah, they pump you full of information and work you like a dog. And he graduated. We're very, very proud of him. Yeah. And then he also got his first lieutenant. First lieutenant. Yep. I always confuse that. I have no clue.
First class, second class. Second class is the first intro, and then he leapfrogged from a sergeant, enlisted, which is super unusual. Right. He was a medic in Afghanistan and stuff. Front line medic, and then he got his PA that he was working for over there in the Cobb, this quick hospital they set up in the front line. Got him engaged, got him thinking, going, you should do this too. And he went, I should. Yeah. He went in, got a great recommendation, and just went right through the second youngest person to graduate in his class. Right. In that. So, and he graduated top 10% kind of thing. So it's just, we're very proud of him.
Very proud of him. It was a lot of fun. We rented a house and all the kids got together.
Yeah, it was good.
Aunts and uncles. It was just a hoot. We had a good time.
You
got a severe war wound.
Yeah. Wrestling with the kids. I forget they're 20 now and bigger and stronger than I am, and they broke my rib. It's hard to breathe and laugh. Man.
I stayed out. I'm like, oh no, I'll get hurt. You guys were playing in the pool.
We had a ball. It was fun.
Crazy.
The grandkids stayed clear too. They were playing board games inside. So it's time for a ruckus. Let's go. Cannonball.
Yeah, it was pretty intense, but it was fun. It was a very enjoyable time, and I'm very proud of him. And they're expecting their third child next week.
Yay, I think Friday. Yeah, on Friday. So we'll be grandparents with a granddaughter now. Yeah. The third time grandparents, but first granddaughter. This should be so fun. There are so many little tiny cute dresses coming their way. They got every one of them.
She already has them.
From age infant or newborn to I think age 8 or 9. It's just
maybe 20. I don't know. It's crazy. But it'll be fun. So good things happening for the Lane
Only
clan.
2 people graduated. There were 2 officers. They were penned and graduated in this class. This is how small. There are only 800 PAs, physician's assistants, serving in the Army on the globe.
Right.
And there's only 800 out of how many millions of there's even far less doctors. So this is extremely prestigious on how he got into that. And he'll serve and do his, I think he'll have 11 years in. He's now been assigned to the 1st Armored Division, Fort Bliss, El Paso. I wish I was trying to get him to go to Germany or Hawaii or someplace exotic, Colorado Springs.
I think he's still at that point where they tell you where to go.
Yeah. You're an officer, but no seniority. Yeah. Thank you for service. You're serving 3 years here.
Not all bad.
Garden questions. Maybe we should jump into that now.
Sure. So Susan has a question. She says, I'm seeing a lot of spider webs in my shrubs.
Oh.
Is that spider mites? If not, should I worry about just regular spiders?
Well, I don't think you should ever worry about spiders. They're good guys. I mean, except for maybe black widows, and they're pretty rare. They're in the dark spaces. A quick tidbit. You know why so few people actually get bit by black widows and brown recluse?
Do tell.
Well, here's the reason why. They're usually in dark spaces, humid, in the dark areas, which is usually under rocks, under things. And so when you start reaching underneath things, you don't see that webbing. You basically crush them, and they're hanging upside down in their web. So their back is against you almost always. So it's very rare when you see someone they don't crawl up and predatory look for your jugular while you're sleeping at night and lay eggs under your pillow. They don't do that.
Tarantulas do.
They're afraid. Yeah.
Kidding.
They're afraid of people, and they hang in dark spaces out of the way, upside down. And so that's one reason. I don't even know why I mentioned that, but just interesting tidbits about garden spiders. Other spiders are good. They eat all the bad bugs. They're the only two. Tarantulas are not poisonous. No. They're pretty docile. But black widows, brown recluse are, and they are very rare to see, usually in dark spaces. When you're in your irrigation box, you'll see them. So spiders are good. If it's an evergreen and it's got spider webs and you don't see spiders, almost guaranteed spider mites. And they will suck the life out of your plant and kill it if you're not careful. So it's probably good to get a spray on that. I mean, right away, because the heat of summer is when they show up and they do the most damage. I would come in and get a multi-purpose insect spray. We've got a spray we make here at the store that you hose this down. And here's the insider tip to really knock them back. I mean, hard. If we have an infestation here at the garden center, here's what we do. I'll first spray that spider mite, that webbing, with spreader sticker. I'll put a garden hose sprayer on the end of the hose so I get some pressure. It's quantity, not quality. You need a lot of it. So I'll first hose that tree down with spreader sticker. What that does, it helps penetrate the inner workings of that webbing. Sometimes the bug killer floats on top of the webbing. It's hard to get it to penetrate. You put spreader sticker first. Then right after that, put your multi-purpose insect spray down. While it's still wet, while it's still dripping. So right after that, with the multi-purpose, and you will have all your worries will be gone. I mean, the birds will start singing your glory. I mean, the gardens will start blooming better. Just things will do. It will really knock them back. Otherwise, your evergreen will turn crusty. It'll say green, crusty, brown, and start dropping needles. Because as they kill the tree, they will literally kill it right back to the roots. So spider mites are bad. And
they love certain plants, Alberta spruce, junipers, things like that. You can just almost count on them showing up. So something to keep an eye on.
They naturally like our native junipers. That's that's their natural diet. So if you've got ornamental junipers or natural junipers in your yard, you highly likely they're going to come in. And then they go after the spruce. They seem to like those, and they go after the pines. So look in that sequence. Any webbing without a spider is spider mites. Okay. Don't let them kill your plants.
Yeah. Okay. Tom wants to know: is it too early to be putting down weed inhibitor, or is the timing good?
Well, you generally will say I'll probably start pushing that next week. So he's a little bit premature, but it's raining. I mean, there's a vent of rain. You really want to put weed preventers and your fertilizers down, your summer feeding and your summer weed prevention. You want to put that down right at the very beginning, before that first rainstorm of the monsoon season. So usually you're doing it before July 4th, because most for sure the White Mountains, you're starting to rain by July 4th. Flagstaff, you're probably seeing it right afterwards. Then Prescott Payson, Kingman will follow after that. So the mountains will see some moisture in July. You want that weed preventer down to keep the seed from germinating. That's when all the tumbleweeds go crazy. That's when your goat head spreads and you've got thousands of these little tiny burrs, seed heads that poke up into your foot. Your dogs start limping around. That's when foxtail starts going crazy. Horehound will take over the arenas. You want to put it down before the rains come. There's a minor weed killing effect. If it's a seedling just coming up, you can put weed preventer down. It will eliminate those. But once that tree or that shrub, once it's rooted, the weed is rooted, it has no effect. It only affects the seed, not the plant. That's why it's easy to spread it around your fruit trees, around your roses, around your up and down the driveway, and not worry about it killing other stuff. It only affects the seed. But you got to get it before it germinates. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be. So next week I'll probably start preaching. It's the end of June. It's time. This week I'm just seeing stressed plants, and I'm pushing the humic, the Natural Guard humic,
which is a great product that is not talked about much or understood well. But boy, with all the stress I've seen, you need it.
Yeah, humic is the thing to do now. Next week it'll be food and weed preventers. We'll go deep into that.
Deep.
That's right.
Deep state.
We'll be right back with Ken and Lisa Lane and the Mountain Gardeners.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Once upon a time, Fred the Sage and Bob the Yucca watched a herd of deer eat their neighbor's garden.
Hey, Bob.
Said Fred.
It's a good thing we're native Arizona plants from Waters Garden Center.
Right, Fred.
Said Bob.
We can handle tough Prescott dirt, hot sun, low water, and we look great in the garden.
You betcha, Bob.
Said Fred.
Hummingbirds and bees love us, but that deer sure doesn't.
Be like Fred and Bob. Go native at Waters Garden Center. Safe, natural, and organic.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
This is the time of year, summer, June, July, August, when certain plants really like to be planted. Now I'm going to cover the exact plants next segment or after Lisa comes in. But this segment, it's a little bit shorter. Thought I'd go over how to plant in the summer. There's a technique. There's a way that's more successful planting this time of year. And so I just thought I'd go over those steps. And you'll need 3 different products. So you need mulch, food, an all-purpose plant food, and root and grow. But then mainly it's how do I dig the hole and how do I hydrate the hole before I plant. That's where the secret is in summer. So let's just go through that steps. No matter what size, let's say you're going to plant a new fruit tree, a new maple, a new spruce or pine or juniper. You need a privacy screen. I need 5 Arizona cypress just to fill in and screen that area so I don't see that new house or that neighbor or feel the wind. So if you're planting, whatever size of that plant is, you want to dig the hole the same depth as that bucket. So it's a 5-gallon plant. What is that? Maybe a foot, 12 inches deep. 15-gallon plant's about 18 inches deep. A 24-inch box, about 24 inches deep. Plant at the same depth. We don't want those roots to go deep. First of all, the plants won't root deep. There's nothing down there for them. There's no moisture. There's just more rock, more clay, more caliche, more nasty stuff. The roots do not go down. That's a myth. The taproot myth, that's for the Midwest Southern folks. You folks, maybe that's East Coast. I don't know. There is no taproot, or it doesn't go down more than 2-3 feet, and then it turns, and it runs just underneath the surface of the soil, looking for more moisture, more nutrients, looking for your flower bed or the neighbor's irrigation. It's just looking for more moisture, the dry creek that runs down there, so that when it does rain, it can maximize the amount of moisture that it gets, the amount of moisture that is delivered in the mountains of Arizona. Again, it rains infrequently, a lot, but infrequently. The plants know this, so they're setting up their roots to pick up the moisture as fast as it can. That's how it grows. If we know that's how a plant grows in the mountains of Arizona, dig the roots, dig the hole wide, so we encourage wide roots. So the hole is the same depth as that container, 3 times the width. So add a bucket on either side, kind of rounded shape. As you're digging that hole, kind of saucer, think of a teacup or a cereal bowl, think of that. And then as you're screening that soil, you'll need to screen it. You want to get all the old roots, debris. I found blocks or rock or trash that the contractor has buried in the yard. I've seen all kinds of stuff. Rocks and boulders. Obviously, anything bigger than a golf ball has got to go. Old roots. Don't leave those in the hole. As things compost, old tree roots compost, they actually taint the soil. They'll actually poison the soil so nothing will grow there. So screen that stuff out of there. And then what's left over, we want to amend with some Water's premium mulch. It's a compost that's been screened down to 1/4 inch minus, very fine, but it's like adding richness back into that soil. It's a transition zone between what the plant is currently rooting in or grown in and the native soil. It's got to get used to that native soil eventually. We want to give it some transition, some organic, so it doesn't go cold turkey from this rich growing medium into native yuck. So you've screened the soil, you blend about 25, 30%, about 1 shovel of mulch for every 3 shovels of native soil. Blend that all together, mix it together, then that's what you're going to use to backfill around the root balls. And you pull the roots out, score the root sides so that root ball should not be root bound, shouldn't be roots spinning round and round and round in the bucket. You'll never find that here at Waters Garden Center. We don't sell leftover plant material. That's from last year. It should have been sold last year. They couldn't, so they kept it. It overgrew its bucket and it started to become root bound. If you see that, you need to cut those roots or root prune, and maybe it will stop spinning around. Usually it won't, but maybe. Loosen the bottom, basically, is what I do. The very bottom of that, where the bottom of that root ball, just kind of tickle the feet. Open up the roots so it can receive more water, and then set it in the hole and backfill around with that soil that you just mixed up. Before you backfill it, though, you want to fill up or hydrate that hole you just dug with some water. Take the hose, fill it halfway up with water. Just soak it. You're probably going to use 5 gallons or more. Just fill it up. We're trying to hydrate not where the plant, we don't care about the plant at this point. We're trying to hydrate the surrounding soil so that it doesn't suck all that moisture away from the roots. If you don't hydrate those roots, what will happen is you'll plant it, you'll backfill it, you'll water your plant, the plant will be hydrated, it'll be happy, and within moments, hours, that surrounding dry, crusty soil will suck all the moisture away from it. So if we prehydrate, it doesn't do that. So about half full, then you set that root ball around in that water. We backfill around that root ball, pack it down as best we can, and then you're going to sprinkle some all-purpose plant food. This is going to feed it for the next 3 months. So it's a granular, natural food. And then you water it in finally with your hose. And the final step is you have a watering can full of water and root and grow. So root and grow is a rooting hormone, transplant shock. So you water it in with that, and that will cause new root hairs to start forming. So same depth, twice the width, or 3 times the width, rounded. Screen your soil, add some mulch, sprinkle some fertilizer on top, and final step, water it in with root and grow, and you will have a successful plant every time. Obviously, water it after that. I've got a handout. It's free. I'll give you one. Just come in the shop. It's got the pictures, tells you exactly how much of each per planting size. We just want you to be better gardeners here in the mountains of Arizona.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona, with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Hi, Ken here with the plants of the week and our Purple Magic Crape Myrtle.
You'll be wowed by the sheer amount and intensity of the purple blossoms that shadow this impressive bush.
Leaves emerge as bold red foliage in spring and then turn bright green just as the purple flowers erupt in summer.
It blooms twice, first in summer, then again in autumn. And at $39, you can have more than one in the gardens.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where people who love to garden, they love to shop. Hi, Ken here with the plants of the week and our timeless beauty desert willow tree.
Large, fragrant burgundy and lavender flowers appear in big, bold clusters all summer long.
This unique water selection is prized for its extra long bloom time without the need of seed pods.
The flowers are highly attractive to hummingbirds, 100% Arizona native and just $59.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where people who love their native plants to really bloom, they love to shop.
And we are back with Lisa Waterslane in the studio. And this segment, we just give to her to see a woman's touch, just that gardener's flair, the color, the fragrance, the beauty. Otherwise, we men, it's been my experience, not all men, I'm not stereotyping, but I tend to go deep into tomatoes, lawns, killing bugs, killing things, killing weeds, killing bugs, disease. It just, garden shows turn into that. And I didn't want that. I wanted it to be inspirational. Wanted to get that. Why do we plant gardens? And Lisa has beautiful gardens. Welcome back to the studio.
Thank you.
So we were out sipping coffee this morning. Mm-hmm. And neighbors are going by. It's just pleasant. It's just, just nice. And so they're going, oh, your yard, we just love your front yard. I'm going, oh, thank you very much. We do too. So it ought to be. You own a garden center. You have a radio show. I'm going, oh, boy, it's hard to, all your neighbors know who you are. So it puts pressure on.
Got a reputation to maintain.
To always look good. 12 months out of the year, which is but it is beautiful. It's just gorgeous. Fun to see the hummingbirds after the fountains. Robins were in at the top of the water fountains, bathing. Just fun to see that.
Birds love that fountain. It's
they
amazing.
Do.
Yeah.
So what do you got for us this week?
Well, I'm sure you know this, but June is Perennial Month.
Yeah.
And June really is the month where these perennials really start to shine.
Yeah.
You know, they've starting to bloom or setting buds. They needed the heat to be able to do that. So I thought we would talk about some really great perennials.
Perfect. I don't think we've talked about that in a while, so that's good. Mm-hmm. So perennials, just for you folks that maybe you're going, annual, perennial. What's the difference? What would I do again? Annuals live just the annual, just the year. Perennials and permanent both start with P, and so they're just plant once and done. And they just spread, multiply, and reseed. So perennials are the way to go. Yeah. More than annuals, but annuals, they bloom longer, and so they have a very long bloom cycle. Perennials bloom for anywhere, most of them, 6-8 weeks at most. Annuals bloom all season, from April through November. They bloom, so they got a longer bloom cycle. But then they're dead.
That's why I like to mix them in a lot of my containers or in our landscape. We're mixing perennials and we have annuals, so it's kind of they compensate for each other. Yeah,
we anchor with the perennial. It could be a perennial vine, shrub, or nice, pretty like Jupiter's beard or Centranthus. You can say that 10 times fast. Some nice tall perennial. That's the anchor. Then we dress it or skirt it with lots of annuals. Right. It's a good way to go. Good look.
Yeah, definitely. But some of the ones that we have in right now, they're absolutely looking gorgeous. The first one is coneflower or echinacea. My favorite, I think, is the Cheyenne Spirit.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I like that one because it has yellow and orange flowers. So it's not just one color. You kind of get a variety of color in it. But there's Powwow Berry, which is a really bright, bright pink. There's Sombrero and Salsa, and those are in the more reds and oranges color. So color you want, we probably have a color that will match your scheme.
Way more choices than just what your grandparents grew. I mean, your grandparents had that basic
the purple.
Purple, yeah, it's a variation of purple. You want this purple or this purple? Now there's all kinds of colors, and it naturalizes so well. Plant that at the top of your drive or top of the wildflower gardens, and it will reseed. It will come up in other places, and it's a good pollinator. Butterflies love to hang out on those seed heads because it's so easy to to hang out on. And the little birds, like little goldfinches and sparrow, they love coming down and eating the seed heads. So it's a great little plant.
It is, definitely. The other one I really is looking gorgeous right now is the garden phlox. So this is the upright phlox. It's not the ground cover, low growing one. And the purples are just purple, and they have there's like a peachy orange one, and they're just so bright. I mean, the colors just scream at you, which is nice in a perennial bed. You just need something that screams at you with color. And they get fairly tall, so they're a good one to put towards the back, middle to back of your bed, depending upon what else you have in there. But definitely a nice one for here.
If you have a cottage or English garden look, you like that mixed border for raised planter bed, every one of those kind of garden needs a tall phlox. So there's creeping. Ground cover just gets ankle high and spreads, and it blooms in the spring. It's really done for now. This summer is when your tall phlox really takes off, and it's a rock star. I mean, it just grows. You can divide it later in a couple of years. You can take a shovel, take a piece, and spread it around, and give it to friends, and trade it to you at your garden club. It's a great little plant. Maybe gets above knee high, maybe 2 feet tall, something like that. At maturity. It's a beautiful plant. And now's the time. This is when you want to plant them.
Definitely. Then anything in the Coreopsis family just does fabulous here. So we have early sunrise in, which is a real full little button type flower. I mean,
double flower, right?
Double
it's
flower.
It's not a single petal. It's double.
No, it's a double. So it really makes a statement. It stays a little shorter, I think like 12 inches or so. So good one for the front of that bed to fill in. One that gets taller, but I really like the look of it, is the thread leaf. They call it thread leaf tick seed. So tick seed's another horrible name.
Very
for
good.
I'm like, who wants
tick
tick
grew
seed?
that? I don't want ticks. But it is pretty, and it's from the Coreopsis family.
Right.
It's hardier, actually, than the...
I think I like about it has a very ferny, almost leaf structure to it.
Yeah.
Does get taller, probably 20, 24 inches, I would say. So great to fill in the back, but just a very different looking. And the flowers are a little smaller, almost a little small daisy-like looking, but really, really pretty.
And true natives. This is one you put into wildflower seeds and you mix out in the yard and spread it. But why wait for, spread it in winter and maybe I'll get some flowers in the spring? You can buy a full-on plant right now, put it in the front part of your raised bed or a container, and just enjoy it basically all summer long. It blooms.
Right. The other one, the Coreopsis, is the little bang elf. There again,
that's a new one. I'm not familiar.
Of that name? So it is unusual in that the flower starts out red and then kind of gets more yellow into it as it ages. So it's almost a variegated at some point. Very unusual. I got to
look at that. I haven't seen that one. Interesting. That's a new variety. I've never seen that.
I think it's been out a year or two.
Okay.
But still fairly new. But unusual color for a Coreopsis. And then, of course, Scabiosas, which pincushion flower, are just looking fabulous right now. Oh, my gosh. There's just so many blooms on them, and they're just popping. And the thing I like about Scabiosa is it just blooms almost all summer long, I'd say.
It's been in bloom for a month. And then the purple flowers kind of hover above this nice, almost ground cover. And the flowers hover on a long, long stem, maybe a foot-long stem. And it's got this pincushion kind of flower that hummingbirds, butterflies really like it. Yeah. They'll hang out. Guaranteed butterflies, if you have this in your gardens, they will like it. And I've noticed that the javelina don't like that plant.
I know.
They leave it alone.
Unusual.
Actually, I think I'm not sure about the phlox. I know they don't bother Coreopsis and echinacea. They don't bother that one. Well, is that right? It's got a pokey seed head. It's really, they don't bother either one of those. I see them in javelina ravaged gardens. They're still blooming.
Yeah. Deer will eat Coreopsis, though, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But the Centranthus, you're right. And one of the people that works here says the gophers leave his Centranthus alone.
Really? Or Jupiter's beard. It's another native perennial bloomer. We planted one at the top end of our garden. It's now spreading. I'm actually worried I might take over. It's so easy. It's kind of like a Mexican primrose.
Right.
It kind of spreads and spreads. You got to keep it in check.
Spread that much, but it's pretty. Absolutely,
it's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Long bloom cycle, drought hardy. Can't kill it. I defy you to kill Centranthus. It's impossible. In full bloom.
Absolutely gorgeous. And it comes in white. You don't see it in white very often. Usually the red. It's more of a pinky red.
Yeah. Do we have white out there? I wouldn't mind one across the dry creek in our own gardens.
We did earlier. I don't know.
Missed it.
Things come and go pretty quick out there. Miss Huff Lantana. So if you have a hot spot that you want some color in, Miss Huff is your gal. More of an upright lantana. It doesn't really creep. But nice upright, probably 2 foot tall or so. Yeah. Loves the heat. Boy, it can take it in those. And it'll
grow. It's the only lantana that will grow in the mountains. Mm-hmm. So it'll grow. It'll go down to maybe 0 degrees. So it's not for the real high elevation, but up to about 6,000 feet in a full sun area. Mm-hmm. Come back every year for you. Whereas the desert varieties, they'll die off in the winter. We have those colors, the bubblegum colors. This is more of a yellow, but a good choice for that hot reflective wall. Mm-hmm. You can't beat Miss Huff Lantana. Thank you, Lisa. June is Perennial month, and we've got a lot of them. That's just a few of the many that are in bloom here at Waters Garden Center.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Hi, Ken here with the Plants of the Week and our Gold Star Potentia.
A rising star in the landscape, bathed in flowers as gold as an Arizona sunset.
Growing to only knee-high and wide, this shrub loves growing in our sun and uniquely resistant to heat, wind, water, fire, and deer, all wrapped up in a showy little package and under $30.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where people who love gold stars wrapped in tidy little packages, they love to shop.
Hi, Ken here with the Plants of the Week and our Lavender Shades Blooming Penta.
One of the best butterfly attracting plants. It's right up there with milkweed, only prettier.
Hummingbirds have to dance around all the butterflies of this deeply colored summer bloomer.
Plant a few in the vegetable garden to attract pollinators that help tomatoes and squash set more fruit, all for under $10.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where people who love to garden, they love to shop. There's a whole series of plants. So the garden center has the spring mix is done and the summer mix is here and it's starting to bloom. So you'll find that in the mountains of Arizona, we're so seasonal. We've got 5 basic seasons. You've got spring bloomers. Obviously, we've come through that. That's when your trees, the purple leaf plums start to bloom. Your lilacs are in bloom. Then you go to June. I define as its own season because it's when all the perennials bloom and look so good. It's the best time to plant perennial flowers. Those things that come back every year. Remember, perennial and permanent both start with P. And so those things they're in bloom. You can touch and smell and see, and the hummingbirds will be floating around. You can see what the pollinators are. Butterflies will be around. It's the best time to plant perennial. I define that as its own season. It's unique to the mountains of Arizona. Then summer. So summer plants. This is really June through September, something like that, is our hot monsoonal. It's actually a whole nother growing season. If you can fertilize when the rains start coming, then it just takes off. Whole nother set of blooms on your roses. The annuals just go crazy. So the flowering things just go nuts. Your fruits will just plump right up. That's summer. Fall. Everyone's got to have some fall color, right? So this is when your maples and your aspens, your purple, your Bradford pears, they all start to look really good. They show off. Your burning bushes, your Virginia creepers, they just are rock stars in the fall of the year. Then you've got winter. This is when your evergreens are really showing off. That privacy screen really plays out in the winter months, as everything drops their leaves. And so your core, your anchor in the landscape are those evergreens. You need about 20% of your landscape dedicated to nothing but evergreen shrubs and trees. Now, not just the Christmas tree looking spruce, but also your junipers, cypress, cedars, red-tip photinias, elaeagnus, the native manzanitas, all those things that hold their foliage. 20% of your landscape should be dedicated to that. Right now it's the summer. So you're seeing Crape Myrtles are starting to erupt with colors. They've been in bud, and now they are just starting to bloom. And they are fluorescent. Effervescent. They are celebrating the heat. Many folks were calling us a month and a half ago going, I think I lost my Crape Myrtle. It didn't leaf out. I'm worried about it. It doesn't like spring. Crape Myrtles like heat. They like summer. Your bougainvilleas, they like summer. Rose of Sharon. That's the only hardy hibiscus that grows up in the mountains of Arizona. It is heavily budded, and the first few flowers just started to open up. Again, it waited until it was summer because that's when it likes the heat. It prefers to be planted now in the summer rather than in winter, spring, or any other season. It prefers right now. We just got a load of hydrangeas. They are magnificent this time of year. The hardy ones. Now, there's several varieties of hibiscus. There's the greenhouse grown, give your mom a hibiscus kind of color thing. But in the mountains of Arizona, many of the hibiscus gets tricked into dying or never blooming again. They need to bloom on second year wood, and then the winter kills back to the ground, back to the ground where it forces new growth. It's hard to explain that. I didn't want to dedicate a whole segment just to that. But trust me, there are some hydrangeas that do better than others in the mountains. Make sure you do your homework and know where you're buying them from. If it's just from a florist or at the front of the grocery store, enjoy it for the season and then fully expect to throw it away. It's not going to come back. You don't want to plant that in your yard. You want to put it in a container and use it as an annual flower for your landscape. The barberry, every yard needs at least one barberry and one potentilla because they look so full and so thick and so luxurious. They love the heat so much that they're luxurious but yet tough as nails. Those are plants that they've plumped up and they look fabulous. There's the loads coming in. We're still stocking, still bringing things from the farm, and fresh stock comes in every few days. And the barberries and potentilla are over the top. Potentilla is a lacy little shrub, about knee high, maybe a little bit taller, not much, with a yellow flower. It's the size of a quarter. It starts blooming in May, and it doesn't stop until fall. It's amazing how long, and animals don't bother it. It looks pretty. It takes the heat. It roots out nice. It naturalizes, and then the animals don't eat it. Blooms for all summer, all spring and summer, fall. That's a plant. Every yard should have one. I'm telling you, it's such a great plant for here. And it doesn't overgrow. It doesn't take a lot of care of pruning. Those are some summer plants that do great. I was looking at the Blackberries Raspberries. These are fruiting shrubs. They love the heat. They start to finally elongate and put on tremendous growth when it's hot. They prefer, you'll have better success by planting those things instead of what the book says, plant in spring, watch it grow. Problem with the mountains of Arizona, we plant in spring and then it gets dry and crusty through June. And then it starts to finally rain and have some humidity in the growing. The real growing season in the mountains of Arizona is really when the monsoonal pattern. In a couple weeks, you'll really see the plants start to grow. You'll find that your summer planting, that as soon as that first rain shows up, and again, I explained, this is a one-time wonder in the month of June, this hurricanal pattern that we have. But within a couple weeks, we'll be every week. You'll have at least one rainstorm, or the humidity will go up, or the temperature is warm, the humidity goes up, there's some cloud cover, and you've got a chance of rain. Plants love that. So you'll find that your success rate goes up between now and about the end of fall. You have a better planting success. So if you're new to the area, you just bought that house, and you're worried, I missed the planting season. No, we're just starting. We're so mild in the mountains that it's really year-round we plant. Not so much in Flagstaff. Sorry, folks, that are tuned in up there. But you guys do get cold, at least most years. Last year you didn't, but this year, most time you get a frost line where the landscape crews just scrape snow for a living. And then they go skiing in the afternoon. The White Mountains, same way. But most of the rest of us, we don't really have a frost line, or it's very brief, then it just keeps going. So we plant spruce and pine and fir and cypress and cedars, the evergreens, year-round. We plant summer things in the summer because they prefer it. Well, of course, the biggest season at a garden center is spring because mainly everyone's been pent up so long they're outside and they're tired of this ugly yard. I want something pretty out there. So there's this mad rush to the garden centers where the parking lot's just packed. Now it's more rhythmic. It's more normal. Yes, there's some traffic that really people are coming in. It's strong, but it's more the tree. You can plant now. Just tell me. You can plant now. You're perfectly fine. Don't feel like you've missed the season. Get rid of those neighbors. If you need to screen those out, if you want a fruit tree, if you want some shade, it's okay. We're fully stocked and restocking through summer. It is not a problem. Feel free to plant. We covered how to plant. Ask for that planting guide. And then I would say for new plantings or anything stressing, going back to the first segment, make sure you take advantage of this moisture that we have by putting out Natural Guard's humic. It's a humic acid. It will feed the soil underneath those plants so they want to root deeper and stronger and further and wider. And you just take a bag and you chuck it around where you think the roots will be growing. The plants will do the rest for you. Don't try to work it in. Let the rains do it all for you. It feeds the soil, so those plants want to have a more robust root structure. And more roots equals drought-hardy plants that don't get bugs, that take care of themselves. Those are plants. So that's the one bit of advice I can give you in the next week, 10 days. Put that stuff on. It will make your plants healthier, happier, better looking, better color, bloom better. They'll be healthier. Trust me. Be right back.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Hi, Ken here with the plants of the week and our pink volcano Phlox.
Just when spring flowers are fading, these beauties revive and show off.
Your grandmother only dreamed of growing a pretty pink phlox this fine.
Each flower cluster could make a bridal bouquet all by itself.
This new volcano series is erupting with flowers used to accent entries and fountains, all for $15.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott. For people who love eruptions of pink flowers, they love to shop. I grew up in the family business with my 3 sisters, and I've raised 4 of my own kids in the same garden center. Waters isn't just another business in town. This is part of our home, an extension of who we are. My family spends more time here than we do at home. It's basically an extension of our living room. We just have more friends over than most. My name is Lisa Waters Lane, and you'll feel welcomed, peaceful, and at home here at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road, here in Prescott.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now, welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
Now, if you are planting in the summer, if you've planted this spring, if you've planted this year, make sure you don't rely on your drip system. Drip systems are, you plant this thing, you put 2 emitters on it, 1 emitter. I had too many people saying, oh, but I water 20 minutes every other day. Drip systems are not measured. The amount of quantity of water is not measured by time at all. You can't think in terms of time with drip systems. You have to think in terms of how much water am I actually going to give it. That's why it's so efficient. So if you say I run for 20 minutes, that's fine if you're from California and you're using flood irrigation or shrublers or some high flow thing. But most emitters are 1 gallon per hour. If you run your system for 20 minutes, you just gave, and 1 gallon per hour emitters, you just gave your plants and shrubs no water. You've got to run these things longer, folks. I'm tired of people coming in going, I killed my plants. Why? Because I watered 20 minutes. It's not in terms of minutes. You got to think in terms, I've got a 1 gallon per hour emitter. How long do I have to run it to get a gallon of water on there? You got to change, you got to reverse your thinking on this drip system, or you'll continue to kill your gardens. So drip systems are super efficient because they push that water. None of it evaporates off. It all gets pushed deep down into the root zone. But you got to think in terms of drips, not floods. This is hard for folks that have lawns in the Midwest or shrubblers in the southwest, or it rains all the time in the northwest. It's different here in the southwest. You've got to do it correctly or your plants will get stressed. That's why I keep pushing the humic activator out in the soil. Help recover that stress. Then it'll work with that corrected irrigation. So if you need help with that, come talk to us. I've got a planting guide. I've got a planting guide for free, but I've also got a water guide that's attached to that'll maybe help you program that clock better. We've got a class. Classes start this Saturday, this weekend, right now. So it's Firewise Landscaping is this Saturday at 9:30. I am teaching that class. I'm Firewise certified. I know how to do Firewise landscapes. I know how to get that fire out of the crown of those pine trees and down the ground where the firefighters can get to it. There's techniques for that. And we'll go over all the details on how best to do that. So if you're in that wildland interface where you're worried about fire, come to the class. It's free, 9:30. Every Saturday at 9:30 we have a class. Next week, June 23rd, we've got landscaping that adds beauty and value. How do you increase the beauty of that landscape and adds value? This is those folks thinking about selling their house. How do you stage it? What are the most beautiful plants? What are some techniques? How do we create this oasis effect? And then June 30, tomatoes, growing the best. So if you want to increase, the tomatoes are starting to form, but there's some techniques to get the most harvest. We're going to go deep into not just vegetables, but all things edible, but mainly in the vegetable garden. And then July 7th, we have attracting bees, birds, and butterflies, the pollinators. So take a look at that at watersgardencenter.com. The whole list is there through, I forget when, through early fall or something. Meant to be informative, meant to help you have nicer gardens that are easier to care for. And of course, we'll go deep into watering just because that's how you make things the most fire-wise. Hydrate them. Get that moisture in there so that they don't burn as quickly. That goes not just for fire-wise. That's everything. Makes them healthier. But we'll have to touch on watering, especially this week and probably next week. Ken and Lisa Lane, we're here at Waters Garden Center. We camp out. If we didn't get to your garden question, come talk to us. We love talking one-on-one, or we've got a staff full of really smart gardeners that know their stuff here locally. Until next week, enjoy the beautiful weather and the rain, the moisture that came this week.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
I used to be cocky and actually dared to beat the big boxes at their own game. Since the beginning, we were known for the very best plants in town. But with youthful ambition, we added a line of inferior plants, contractor grade, that matched the box stores and beat their prices. We failed miserably. The plants were side by side. Waters hand-picked quality at the higher price and the inferior plants at the lower price with astounding results. The inferior plants, not bad quality, just not full and nice, were still there a month later. The hand-picked quality plants, they had been restocked twice and the bench was empty again. The youthful cockiness, it's tempered, and with age comes wisdom and knowing who you really are. Waters Garden Center doesn't compete with the marts and the boxes. We simply grow the very best plants our family is famous for. We will never offer inferior plants. Cross my heart. Pinky swear. Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road, here in Prescott.
You've been listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, the owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join him each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to the area. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center, located in Prescott at 1815 Iron Springs Road. Thanks for tuning in to The Mountain Gardener.